Vice Mayor
Those
Oro.
guys, who are they?
Mayor.
Mayor.
Councilmember Joseph.
Joseph?
Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
I got you. Yeah.
Right into them so everybody can hear you.
This one doesn't.
Yeah, we're gonna leave them all
Yeah.
turned on for you guys.
All right. This one doesn't slide out. Oh, okay. It's just strong arm. Okay. Thank you all. You see, part of our ritual in opening a city council meeting is we all shake hands. Let's understand that we may not always agree, and we do. It's great, but this will be a collegial, collaborative effort. So with that said, would you all rise, please, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Whoa, there's a lot of feedback on that.
I pledge allegiance Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Miriam Abadamos. Here. Councilmember Mark Joseph.
Here.
Councilmember Kenneth Leary.
Here.
Vice Mayor David Oro.
Here.
Mayor Leon Garcia.
Here. So for public information this evening, we're going to have a city council meeting. It's going to be brief, and then we're going to go into State of the City update as part of that agenda. When that concludes, then we will start with the general plan process. So just to keep you all informed as to how our evening's going to go. That being said, we'll move on in our agenda. We had copies available. Now we move on to the city clerk's announcement pursuant to Government Code 54952.3. It is as stated in the agenda. We take public comment at this time on anything not on the agenda. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less and address your comments to the city council. Is there anybody here for public comment? We have the podiums over here. Seeing none, I think everybody's very interested in state of the city and general plan. Very good, thank you. We'll move on. It's just a little bit of too much feedback on this. Who's our sound technician? Yeah, it's ringing a lot.
He wants you in the mic.
Oh, okay. Closer? All right, thank you. All right, thank you. That's why we have technical people. Like, how do I get Netflix on my TV? We'll move on to any agenda changes. Not that I expect any agenda changes, council? Hearing none, we'll move on with matters related to American Canyon City Council. We have a consent calendar. Approved minutes of February 4th, 2020, regular joint meeting of the City Council and American Canyon Fire Protection District Board. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Abadamos.
Yes.
Councilmember Joseph.
Yes.
Councilmember Leary.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Oro.
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes, thank you, council. So now we'll move on to a business part of our meeting. Receive and file State of City 2020 report. Mr. Hawley?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. And thanks to all of you in the audience who are joining us this evening. Thanks for taking time on your busy Tuesday evening to come out and hear a presentation about our state of the city, and to also stay and listen to our consultants talk about our newest effort, the update to our general plan. Before we get started, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank a number of our partners that are in the room. Many of them have poster boards or information. Hopefully you've been able to talk to all of them. After we get done with our presentations this evening, you'll have the opportunity to go back out and talk to them some more if there were some you didn't get the chance to talk to. So again, we'll want to thank our partners. First, I wanted to thank the Boys and Girls Club, Jaime and the team here at the Boys and Girls Club that made this facility available. Thank you very much. I also wanted to, yes, I think you're right, Sandy. Thank you. That's a good call, Sandy. Thank you. Also wanted to thank all the city staff that were involved and the consultants that helped pull all this together. I didn't have anything to do with this. They did all the hard work. I think the setup is really great here. So I'd also like to give a round of applause for staff. who put this
Good
together.
job.
Please, we do have a couple extra seats. So those of you who are standing over there who would like to come and fill in, you won't bother us. Please come sit down, and we'd love to have you.
Must admit this work. Is this thing on? Test. Is this mic working?
Yep.
Very good. Now, I'd just like to reflect on the success of the turnout. It proves if you start later in the evening in American Canyon, provide some food, you'll get folks to show up. That's good.
Also, wanted to take the opportunity to recognize a few folks in the room. Representatives from Congressman Mike Thompson's office are here. Representatives from State Senator Bill Dodd's office are here. Representatives from the Napa Open Space District are here, as well as Napa County. And I apologize if I missed, Napa County Office of Education, also elected officials from Napa County Office of Education are here. And probably our Napa Valley Unified Board of Education representatives also. I want to thank all of them for being here. If I missed anyone, I do apologize. Oh, yes, Napa Valley College, thank you also for being here. Thank you, Joe.
Likewise, Supervisor District 5, Billy Ramos.
Yes, thank you. Some of the other community partners that we have in the room, the Chamber of Commerce and the American Canyon Welcome Center is here. We have the Children's Museum in Napa Valley is here, Collaborative Care, the American Canyon Community and Parks Foundation, and Community Leaders Coalition with Parents Can and On the Move, all with a lot of important information. We work hand in hand with these service providers, providing needed efforts for the community, and they're here to share sort of a state of their organizations as well, and that was part of the theme tonight. The format actually is a little bit less of the formal state of the city that you might see elsewhere and more of a state of the community. Really wanted to embrace our community organizations and our community as a whole. So that's what the new format is about tonight, and I hope you like it. We'll go ahead and get into our presentation, Sue Ellen.
I think maybe council may want to move to the front seat so we can see the presentation.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah. Give us a moment, please.
Plenty of space in front of
Yeah. We haven't seen this yet either.
It dawns on me that I forgot to mention representatives from the Napa County Sheriff's Office are here, as well as our Fire Protection District and our police department. So we thank all of those public safety partners as well. So today in the mail, all of the residents of American Canyon, well, not received today, we put in the mail to all the residents of American Canyon this document, and that's what we're going to go through on the screen, a snapshot of that. But it's our commitment to the community to do whatever we can to share information about the current events that are going on in American Canyon. And that's really what this State of the City document is about. So I expect by Thursday or Friday of this week, when you open up the mailbox, you'll have one in there. This is about the 9th or 10th year that we've kept this tradition alive, and I hope you like this document. We try to improve it each year. These faces may look familiar. They are sitting now in the front row. It's our mayor and city council. The mayor and city council provide the leadership for this community and for the council, and we wanted to make sure that everyone understood who the mayor and the vice mayor and all of our city council members are. On the previous slide, you also saw a picture of our city staff. There are about 25 sworn officers in our police department, about 24 firefighters in our fire department or fire district, and about 88 full-time employees working at the city. And all of those employees are doing their best every day to make the lives of American Canyon residents and businesses the best that it can be. Go ahead. So just some highlights from last year. The Valley View Senior Housing Project was completed. For those of you who aren't aware of that, it's a 70-unit, 100% affordable senior housing project just behind City Hall. I gave a presentation to the League of California Cities City Manager Department last week about that project, and it was well received. Everyone was amazed what we were able to do with all the partnerships and all the ingenuity and risk that the city and the city council was willing to take to make that project come to fruition. So really a milestone achievement. That's actually an award-winning project last December. The North Bay Business Journal gave the city and our development partner, Saha out of Berkeley, an award for that project, and it was well received. Thank you, Sandy. We also had some fun last June. KTVU Channel 2 has been out and about around the Bay Area on what they call their Zip Trip series. This was an effort by KTVU to try and explore communities in the Bay Area that maybe people hadn't heard of, and they found us and were really excited. We had a little party for them on a Friday morning actually, just right over here. And well received. We're the only city in the North Bay to have that honor to be on their Zip Trip series, and they did an hour-long live television feed right out front here, and the community really came out. It really showcased everything that American Canyon's about. So that was a really fun, once-in-a-lifetime kind of event. We also, through the efforts of Congressman Thompson and our city council and many other electeds, were able to open up our new post office last year. For many years, very small, underserved post office, and we had an expanded project now that's fully open, and we're still working on the additional service hours, but the facility is there, and it was a huge achievement for our community. And then lastly, the Broadway District-specific plan was approved in June as well, and this plan provides a lot of foundation for our economic growth, particularly commercial and retail opportunities along the highway, along with mixed-use opportunities for high-density housing along the transit corridor there. So another milestone reached there with that project being approved. Looking ahead in 2020, I mentioned already our general plan update. That's really going to be the focus of what is really a 2-year effort. And the general plan will set the vision for the community for the next 20 years. So as we start the decade of the 20s, we're really looking forward, not just the 20s and 30s, but all the way out to the year 2040. And that's hence the tagline, American Canyon, or AmCan 2040, love where you live. We're really trying to explore what we want American Canyon to look like in the year 2040. Later next month, staff's going to be bringing a proposal and a program forward for volunteer opportunities. We're going to be employing some new technology and new programs so that community members or community organizations can more easily avail themselves of volunteer opportunities here in American Canyon. We know there's a lot of pent-up demand for that opportunity, and we want to kind of clear the decks and have many more trail building days like we did a couple of weeks ago up a new open space out in the wetlands with the barn raising, or the owl barn raising that we had. Other opportunities are out there, and so staff is putting together some technology that makes it simple to register, so you don't have to keep filling out forms and all that stuff each time. So we're really excited about those new volunteer opportunities. Also, we're making improvements to various parks and streets and infrastructure. We got a number of projects in our capital improvement program pipeline, and engineers who are working behind the scenes to get those designs ready so that we can build some of those projects, and we'll talk about them a little bit later in this program. And lastly, also kind of a unique effort in 2020 is the 2020 census. For those of you who don't know, the federal government does a count of all of the residents of the United States every 10 years. And so 2020 is one of those milestone years where a census is taken, and it's very important that everyone in this room becomes an ambassador to talking to all your friends and talking to everyone in the community and making sure they're filling out the forms and paperwork for the census and encouraging people to turn all that in. Making sure that everyone is counted ensures that we receive funding allocations from the federal government and from the state government. And if we sell ourselves short by not completing that paperwork, then we sell ourselves short on a lot of opportunities. So if you care about California, if you care about Napa County, if you care about American Canyon, filling out your census form and encouraging your neighbors to do the same is really the easiest way that you can contribute something in 2020. We also have a couple of elections coming up. The primary election is March 3rd. Registration, I think, closed yesterday or today. but it's very important. You should have received your ballots, and there's very important questions that are available in the primary election. And then in November of this year, there'll also be a presidential election. And again, continuing to get out the vote, continuing to encourage people to register to vote and actually go and exercise their rights and really duties to be heard with their voting choices this fall. So part of the unique efforts that we do every 10 years. I mentioned already our public safety partners at the fire district and the police department. At our March 3rd council meeting, our police chief Ortiz will be giving the annual report for our police department for 2019. And on March 17th, our fire chief will be doing the same thing for the fire department. So please tune in for those presentations and to hear the latest information as it relates to public safety. The fire department continues to see an increase in calls, about 100 more incidents this year than last year, and the fire chief will provide more updates and details about what those were and what some of the trends are. On the police department side, there was a small reported increase in crimes as well, although much smaller scale crimes, and it kind of fits a trend that we're seeing statewide. Larceny and thefts, those lower level crimes that seem to be occurring more frequently after the passage of some legislation and statewide initiatives that reduced penalties for those types of crimes. It's not just in American Canyon, it's occurring all over the state, and something that the chief has been following along with all of our law enforcement partners. So it's a concern, but the chief will have some more information about that as well. And lastly, as it relates to emergency preparedness, we do expect public safety power shutoffs to be in the future for next year. Certainly whether American Canyon is in those shutoff areas or not is not yet known. It's certainly a concern of the community. We endured one of those last year, and the community really came together to get through it, but it was an unpleasant experience to say the least. Our council has been very vocal with our electeds in the state legislature and the governor's office about the need to have a much better implementation of those, much more notice, much more services, and trying to maintain the quality of life that we have even during those power shutoffs. We don't yet know whether there'll be power shutoffs in American Canyon next year, but we do need all of our residents to be ready in case they occur. We certainly will have our public safety personnel organized and ready to be prepared and what we can do, but we also need each of you to be prepared. I want to give a special shout out to our amazing CERT team. They have provided gap-filling roles for areas where our public safety folks can then focus on real urgent emergencies, and they have really stood up to the challenge, and the volunteer group keeps growing and keeps being more impressive. So a special shout out to our CERT team. I mentioned before the volunteer program. You can see behind me some of the stats we had from last year, close to 200 trees and nearly 500 volunteers working outside and in our community to make it a better place. Almost 1,000 volunteer work hours, but when you consider we have 20,000 residents, you can certainly see how that number could go up. So we're, like I mentioned before, going to be implementing some different programs to make it easier, and we certainly expect those numbers to go up next year. I mentioned previously roads and infrastructure. We have a number of projects that are in the pipeline. That picture is from American Canyon Road. We repaved American Canyon Road from the railroad tracks past Newell Flosden last year. That paving occurred mostly with Measure T funding, which if you don't know what Measure T funding is, it's a sales tax that was passed a few years ago, and we've started to receive those funds, and it's directly for the purpose of repaving streets. At our March 3rd council meeting, we bring back to council a revised list of projects we're proposing for next year and the years after for those Measure T streets. But just a sneak preview, the project that we have targeted coming up is for James Road, and to make some improvements there for both sidewalks, bicycle lanes, and repaving the street, a similar stretch to what we did on American Canyon Road. Also in the hopper are projects on Green Island Road. That's a long-term effort of widening and reconstructing Green Island Road and all of the interior industrial streets in the Green Island industrial area, as well as the construction of a new road that would be Devlin Road, currently where the overpass is to Nowhere bringing it down to Green Island Road. Also in the queue for for this year, 2020. This slide is probably my favorite slide in the whole presentation, and in the book you'll see it. It actually spans 2 pages, and it's kind of a clever mashup between a couple of plans that have been working independently of each other, but when you see them next to each other, you really get to understand how the future of American Canyon is starting to lay out. On the top half of the page, you see the Watson Ranch specific plan, and the bottom half of the page, you see the Broadway District specific plan. They are aligned next to each other. They benefit each other, and they feed off of each other with energy and development potential. Very exciting projects, and they really will complement each other. A lot of infrastructure will go in for these projects. Also, there'll be new homes, new parks, new trails, new school in Watson Ranch, and new commercial opportunities along Broadway. I think the other important piece to know about Broadway specifically is the desire to make that more of a main street as opposed to a 4-lane urban highway. The desire is to control the speeds a little bit lower, to make the traffic flow a little more smoothly, and to have a development much closer to the highway than currently exists. You won't see large parking fields out in front of the new development. You'll see the development buildings much closer. And in particular, new class 1 bikeways on both sides, sidewalks and bicycle lanes. And so American Canyon residents will be able to, once those improvements are completed, American Canyon residents will be able to walk or bike north-south on the highway, where certainly today it's very, very challenging to do that. So a lot of exciting improvements, a lot of exciting opportunity. And I forgot to mention in the Watson Ranch specific plan is also the Napa Valley Ruins and Gardens, which is the opportunity to really unique in the North Bay, an opportunity to take what were some old concrete structures, retrofit them and turn them into a hospitality area, winery, tasting rooms, retail, and really nothing else like it in the North Bay. It will be a draw regionally and an opportunity for us to make our mark in the North Bay with that kind of a facility. So it's very, very exciting. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Councilmember. The top part of the page with the green and the more detail streets and little homes and things, that's the Watson Ranch specific plan. The bottom of the screen there with the more blobs of color and not quite as much detail is what's known as the Broadway District specific plan. And so those are the two, but as you can see, they touch each other, they line up with each other, and they really do complement each other. Yeah, thank you. Just, pardon me, real quickly on the general plan update, which we're going to hear a lot more here in a moment. It's the opportunity for this community to plan the next 2 decades of its future. Several key elements. In the general plan world, each topic that you talk about is identified in a chapter in your general plan. In this case, they call those chapters elements. And so there are a number of key elements that you look at in your general plan. In our process, we've started to highlight 4 of them: the land use element, our housing element, circulation element, park and rec element, and of course there are others. But this process is the way for the city to plan out its future for the next 20 years. And what's important is that each of these elements, some of them are currently a little bit outdated and others are more modern, but at the end of this process, all of those elements will translate to each other. And what that means is if you have a land use in one part, then in your circulation element, you talk about your roads and you talk about your park and recreation. All of them are what's known as horizontally consistent, meaning they all have to integrate with each other. And so that's part of the effort of getting all those pieces together, is get them to talk to each other and make sure there's not conflicts in between them. And our general plan consultant will talk a little bit about that here in a bit. And lastly, just wanted to end a slide on our community. We talked before about our community partners, and I want to encourage all of you to, after we're done, to go and talk to the partners that are at the tables out front. But the picture on the left is a new a new project we have with the American Canyon Parks Foundation. They have purchased physical fitness equipment and have arranged for a donor to build a concrete slab for that equipment to go on out near the Wetlands Trail. And that will provide a really unique recreational opportunity outside for folks to utilize the wetlands even more than they already do, which I know may be hard to believe, but it's a very popular area, and it will be a great amenity for our community. On the right-hand side of the page is one of our basketball courts that we're redoing, and we're in the process of redoing some other basketball courts and tennis courts. One of those tennis courts is actually going to be converted to a pickleball court. I don't know if there's anyone in here who plays pickleball. Actually, raise your hand. Has anyone in here ever played pickleball before? Okay. It's a fun sport. It's kind of a combination of tennis and ping pong, and it's really great. I took my kids out and have learned how to play it. So it's a little bit lower impact kind of a sport than tennis, and really something for all ages. And so we're going to have our first pickleball court here in American Canyon when that project wraps up later this spring. We continue to have great presenters at our various public events. Anne Marie spoke at our Veterans Day, and we continue to have Memorial Day and July 4th and Veterans Day events, and really to engage our community in all those events. That's everything, right? So that's all of the slides that we have for State of the City, but we wanted to at least take the opportunity for members of the public to have any comments or questions about the State of the City booklet or the State of the City presentation, or anything related to State of the City. And if I want to invite the council to come back up, we'll do our best to answer your questions. If you wouldn't mind, Barry, coming up to the mic, we'd appreciate it. We have here a microphone. If anyone does want to make comments, now would be a good time.
Thank you, Barry Christian, American Canyon. Mr. Hawley, I believe I heard you say that registration had closed to vote the 15-day deadline. And there is indeed a 15-day deadline. I just checked on my phone. There's something called conditional voter registration. I believe it's a new process. So anyone can go, even on election day, and register and vote. So even if it's inside the 14 days. And across the street on Highway 29 at the Holiday Inn, 1 week before the election, the Registrar of Voters is opening a voter center. And you can go in there if you're not registered, or if you have to re-register, if there's any problem with your ballot, you can take it in there, re-register, and vote. And your vote will be counted. They will just wait until all the verification process is complete. And also 4 days before the election, this building, the Boys and Girls Club, will also be a vote center, and you can do the same thing. In either of those offices, you can do the same thing that you would do in the registrar's office in the city of Napa. You can register and vote. So don't let that 15-day deadline keep you from voting. Thank you.
Absolutely, Barry. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. With that, I'd like to add you can also drop off your ballot at those places as well. And we do have ballot drop-off boxes. One is on the south side of Walgreens, over there on Broadway. You'll see the little banner on the street, and we have also one at City Hall. And if you're inclined up toward Napa Valley College, those of you attend there, you can find a ballot drop box at Napa Valley College too. Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name is Joan Bennett. I might be the only one in the room that was here when we incorporated. I was on the very first city council. What I want to say is that this is a wonderful city, and it is the product of so many people over such a long time. From 1992, when we incorporated, until here we are today. We've had several different people on the city council. The growth we've had has been absolutely wonderful, and I think that doing this general plan now is one of the most exciting things that we're going to be doing, is capping what has been taking place over the last almost 30 years, when you come right down to it. So it's wonderful to see so many people here. I hope that everybody will take advantage as much as they can of volunteerism and helping make this actual thing, I'll call it a thing, a wonderful success, because it's We all live here, we love living here, and we want to make it the best for ourselves, for our children, and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is another speaker addressing, right now, we're general plan, or I'm sorry, state of the city. If you had questions about that or comments, please feel free to come up, address your comments to the council, please. Really? Well, I'll just, for council as well, I'm just amazed at how far we've come. I think our previous speaker, Joan Bennett, just really nailed it. This is who we are as a product of our city, those of us who live here, and the aspirations of those who came along before many of us were here to decide independently. We want to take control of our own destiny. So we're going to build a city, and we're going to invite people to come, and we want people to enjoy the amenities we have here and be part of us. Embrace those who come to our city. And I think that's a very special quality of American Canyon. If you look at the faces in the room, we are the most diverse city in Napa County, probably one of the most diverse in the state, and that is what draws many people here. But it's the energy and the leadership that got us there from those who worked so hard to incorporate as a city and come up with the first general plan. It was described to me by Ben Anderson, former council member and former mayor, that it was, the old part of the rec building was on the floor. On the tiles, they just kind of laid out a map of the city and started that whole process. And here we are today, moving forward into 2020 with the vision and the support and the interest. Frankly, I just have to comment, the turnout tonight, wow. And this is, I think we've come up with the right formula here to get people engaged in our community. So any other comments from council? If not, this portion of our meeting will adjourn at this time, and then we'll take some moments, and then we'll start with the general plan open house, the same location. If there are no other comments, council, we have concluded our business for the evening. We are adjourned. We will now take up.
Thank you. We're going to start our town hall just in a few moments. So if you just want to keep your seats, we're just going to switcheroo.
We're going to go over that way.
So this is televised, it's being recorded, or we're live? Good evening, everybody.
Sorry, just a brief change. This Thursday, February 20th, at 6:30, Congressman Mike Thompson will be having a town hall in this building right here. So if you'd like to catch up with Congressman Thompson, please come and join us. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, welcome back. We're going to start talking a little bit about the general plan update. Later in the presentation, we're going to actually do a little bit of a poll, asking you some questions about yourselves and about your feelings for the future. And to do that, we're going to use our cell phones. If you don't have a cell phone to connect tonight, we have a good old-fashioned handwritten one we'll hand out to you at that time. But if you'd like, there is Wi-Fi available here, Boys and Girls Club guest Wi-Fi. It has no password or anything, so if you want to work on doing that, we're going to get to that in a few minutes, or you can use your cell phone connection either way. But we're going to eventually go on and answer some questions, and you'll be able to see everybody's responses live, so give you an idea who's in the room and what some common thoughts are as we go forward. Go forward there. So I'm Rick Rust with the firm Mintier Harnish. We're the lead consultant for the general plan update. And tonight we've got several other consultants with us. Jim in the back. We've got Todd and Paige, which are dealing with circulation. Jim's dealing also with education, lifelong learning, and the general plan overall. And then Gina in the back there is over there talking about parks and recreation. So if you see one of the posters with the blue swipe on the bottom, that's one of the areas that we've got something going on and talking about. So we'd love you to stop by during the open house, which will be the hour after this presentation, and ask us some more specific questions about your desires for the future. As far as what is a general plan, it's something that's required for every jurisdiction. Every city and county has to have a current and consistent general plan document to guide both land use and resource decision making within the community. It represents your blueprint for the future. Some people call it the constitution for the city. Where are you going to go and how are you going to get there in the future? And it's also something you should be looking at updating about every 20 years. Now, the basic general plan dates back from 1994, and some of the elements have been updated in between, but a lot of it is a little outdated at this point, given how the city has grown and how the world has changed. So there's some basic characteristics when we look at a general plan. We want to make sure that, as the name says, it's general in nature. This isn't the zoning code, so we don't tell you how far your neighbor has to be from you on the side yard setback and get into details like that. But we provide the broad policies that will guide your decision makers. In fact, your city council will make decisions and they have to make a finding that they are consistent with the direction of the general plan. It's also comprehensive in nature. And that is, it covers a broad range of topics important to the community. We've got some topics here tonight on parks and rec, education, lifelong learning, circulation, but we also cover public safety. We cover housing is going to be a big part of the update. Land use, where are we going to go in the future? Where are we going to have trails and bikeways? What are we going to do as far as our educational future? These are all things that are covered within the general plan program. So it's very comprehensive in nature. And then we try to look out long term. While we will have some implementations that will be next year or the year after, we try to look out 20 years. How do we see our community in 20 years from now? Is it similar to how we are today? Is there something missing that we would like to see added? And at both the poll we're doing here tonight, and there's a survey over on the open house side, we're going to ask you some of those questions about how you picture the community 20 years from now. And then we cover an identified planning area. So we cover an area slightly larger than the city limits. So there'll be some areas right outside of the community that influence the physical constructs of our community and are important for us to provide some guidance for how we think they should be used in the future, whether that's to be developed, to be used as open space, or some other kind of land use. Okay. So here's the broad set, we mentioned earlier, elements. So here's the broad set of typical elements we may cover. Land use, circulation, housing, conservation, and open space are typically combined into one element in most communities in California. Public safety. Then at the end you have three other elements which are unique. Every community can create elements that are important to them as a community. So we are at least going to have an educational element, a parks and recreational element, and utilities being covered for our future. Now, Parks and Rec will even go further than the typical be for a general plan and provide some master planning guidance for what the future might be for our parks and recreational facilities, because that's a key piece of the fabric of American Canyon. And then, of course, besides just meeting our needs, we have to meet the state's needs. This is a state requirement, after all, and the state has a lot of new requirements that the city has to address going forward. Part of this is there's a new set of state guidelines, which were adopted in 2017, that talk about everything you need to know and what should be covered in your general plan update. And if you're really curious about what we should be including and how we might go about it, you can download this document. It's from the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. They call it OPR. And the general plan guidelines give you 600 or 700 pages worth of exciting reading on what should be in a general plan. But if you ever wonder about a piece of it, this is the place to go. There's also some very specific additions that we need to cover as far as new state laws, environmental justice, new changes in tribal consultation. We'll be looking at complete streets, although the city already addresses complete streets fairly well. Vehicle miles traveled is a new way we look at transportation impacts going forward. In the past, projects were given a letter grade, A, B, C, or D, as far as their level of service. In the future, we're more concerned with how far people have to drive, not necessarily the congestion on a given street. So it's a new way the state has for looking at transportation impacts going forward. And we have to set the parameters for how that works. Climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, these are all other items that are going to be addressed, as well as everything else that's happened since 1994 on some of these elements and on to the current day. A little hard to read, but some of the basic things I wanted to point out is there are three groups that are helping us with some of the early parts of developing the general plan. There's a circulation element committee. We have an education and lifelong learning committee. And then we have a parks and recreation working group. And these groups are helping us be a sounding board for some of the earlier inputs on developing the general plan document. Now, the overall general plan will take us out into early 2022. I did want to point out this, if you'd like to read this in more detail, this is our roadmap for how the general plan gets accomplished. And it goes everywhere from where we are today at the State of the City, going through issue identification, which you're going to help us with, existing conditions and trends. Alternatives is going to be another important event where we have another community input, where we look at what are the alternatives that we might look at in the future. How might we change as we go over the next 20 years, and what might we need to address going forward? This will be a key area. We'll have input from the community going forward. Then off to our preferred plan, draft, et cetera, through the end of it. Now, I wanted to point this out because we're way up here at the beginning of the roadmap. So if any of you are saying, I haven't heard about the general plan yet, when's this happen? What's happened here? You haven't missed the boat. We're at the beginning of this trip. And so we're looking forward to your inputs tonight to help guide us, and then we're looking forward to your inputs over the next 2 years to make sure that we have this story correct. We're here as your technical guides, so we're here to tell you what will happen if you want to go a certain direction, what are the trade-offs that will be made. We're not here to tell you what you should do. That's your decision. It's your future. It's what we want to help make your plan come true. So, stay involved. The city does have a website. You may have seen these little cute cards laying around all the different tables. On the back is the website address. Instead of having to type the entire city's website address and where the general plan's hidden, we gave you a shortcut. So if you just look at amcam2040.org, it'll take you right to the general plan update page. All the documents prepared, all the committee notes, everything that we put forward will be presented and provided on that website for your easy access. There will also be a set of public workshops that will be done, and then of course public review of all our public documents, and there will be a public hearing process at the end. The Planning Commission will have to make its motion towards the City Council, make a recommendation, and the City Council make a final adoption. But at all those events, your public input is welcomed and desired. So make sure you keep up with us and get us good input going all the way through. Okay, now the hard part. We're going to try to do a little poll. So, like I said, if you've been able to log on to either your phone or the Wi-Fi, I'm going to see if I can do technology and chew gum at the same time.
Is that the plan for our city?
You like it? It's a little tectonic movement, but So Boys and Girls Club guest Wi-Fi, if you want to use their Wi-Fi. You can use your phone service if you have a good connection. Depends what service you have, whether you have a good connection or not. And when you get there, and what we want to do is, who doesn't have the ability to connect right now? Because we do have paper copies, you can give us the same answers. Just raise your hand if you don't have it, and these people with the blue copies will be glad to give you one. So if you are on your phones, you go to a website, open your web browser and type in SIFT, S-I-F-T .ly. This is just a website. It doesn't gather anything about your phone or who you are. This is all anonymous. All we'll know is whatever answers you type in. Is everybody there waiting for? Okay. And if you don't have it working right yet, feel free to go grab. Right now it should say waiting for the process. Now, one of these questions says pick more than one thing. When you get there, wait, and I'll tell you how to do that one. So as you see, as all of you throw your dots in there, it will add them up. And again, if you're having troubles, raise your hand and we'll get you a blue sheet to fill it in. Somebody over here. We'll get you in there. Okay, I show 75 of you have connected to the surface and 67 of you have answered the question. After you've entered it, it will have a button that'll let you redo it if you want to, but if not, just wait till the next question. How long have you lived in American Canyon? 67% of you have been here more than 10 years. Congratulations. But I also think it's important to note that you have a wide range of people here from different longevities in the community, and that kind of input is what we look for as we go through the general plan, is to make sure we see both the needs and insights of the long-term residents as well as the needs of the new residents that are coming in. All right, we're moving along. And then, by the way, there's 14 questions, and they're not any harder than that. How large is your household? This means how many people live in your residence with you, including yourself. And if you did it wrong, push that redo button. If you're with your spouse, you get extra credit. You can both count. All right, 44% have 3 to 4 persons in their household. 32% are 2. And we're still having some people count in here. So last chance, going once. How many children under age 18 live in your household? So at least half the year living in your household, I guess, if you have to find a rule. So these kind of questions just give us a sense for later questions of who's in the room, what might be your outlooks on different aspects of this. So 56% have no children currently living in their household. Yeah, as she mentioned, that may be why you're here tonight. Right now, approximately how many people live in American Canyon? Pick one. There we got. I won't tell you, but the answer's on page 4. I know. Well, all right. The real answer is 20,629 as of 2019. But it's not graded. We don't know yet. So 64% of you got that right. 32% of you think it's still a little bit smaller community than you may have thought earlier. 20 years from now, how big will you be? So you're starting at barely over 20,000 right now. So still a few votes coming in, but we've got a little bit more than 2/3 of you that think the community will be over 30,000 people. So in the next 20 years, growing by 10,000 or so. Now these next two slides are connected. We're going to ask you which is the biggest issue in your mind right now, and then we're going to give you the same list and ask you which will be the biggest issue 20 years from now. Oh, we've got a lot of colorful input here. It's fun to watch the dots battle it out and grow the graph. Okay, we're about half think that traffic congestion is the biggest challenge facing the community now. 21% lack of affordable housing, and 17% lack of good paying jobs. Now, the same question, but this is you're being a futurist. You are in 2040. What do you think became the biggest issue? Is it the same, or is it something different? So right now we're looking at about 1/3 each, going between still looking at the traffic on Highway 29, but now climate change has increased in its share of the total, to taking us to about 1/3. It's actually now the leading concern 20 years in the future. On average, how often do you use the parks, trails, and/or recreation facilities in the city? Everywhere from rarely to several times a week. This is on average. You may not have got out there and got the exercise this week, but what do you normally get it? All right. We've got about 37% that actually use the park several times a week, and we've got in the mid-20s for once a week and once a month. So you have a very active community here. Again, that's probably why the Parks and Rec was identified as being a notable element to include in your general plan update, because it is an important thing that's part of that fabric of the community and what you use. On average, how would you rate the quality of the parks, trails, and/or recreation facilities? 1 is poor, 9 is great, and anywhere in the middle, 5's average. So 1 is bad, 9 is great, 5 is average. You can pick your adjectives anywhere in between there. So 1/3 of you gave it a 7 as far as the quality. Now this will be important things as you go talk to the Parks and Rec group over here. Start talking with about some of the things you think might make the 7s and 8s or 8s and 9s. You know, what are the other things that could be out there? With limited city resources, what is your priority for investment? Is it building new? Is it remodeling existing? Is it somehow both or none? All right, we only got 64 of you now, so there are a few more. There we go, 72. We're getting up there again. We're going neck and neck between do it all and 36% at remodel existing parks. This will be an important choice as we go forward because there are limited resources available to the community, and so how do we look at investing this? Obviously tonight is just a poll. This isn't a scientific survey for any chance, but it does give us an idea of what you're looking for as we go forward. Would you support a property tax increase to improve maintenance of parks, trails, or recreational facilities? So all of you that marked the all the above on the last slide should be anting up for this, right? 47% no, 30% yes, and 23% no, tell me more. All right, this one lets you pick all. So before you push a button, whichever one you push first will be a high priority, push second will be a second priority. You can pick one of these, you can pick two of them, you can pick three of them. Don't pick the ones you don't want in the community, but rank them otherwise. And if you rank something wrong, just touch it again, it'll turn it off. So this is your most complicated question. You know, townhouses and condos are just two different kinds of ownerships. Townhomes usually have a property associated with them, condos are usually an airspace. Townhome, they're usually different in as far as they're usually for sale, apartments are usually for rent. So townhomes are usually a for sale item, although you can rent a townhome obviously, but that's how we would, the big difference right now is to say a townhome is something you might purchase as a single unit. Now, accessory dwelling units is something that's changed in state law just as this January. You now are by right allowed to have both a separate accessory dwelling unit as well as something called a junior accessory dwelling unit, which is a reuse of like a bedroom within your house. So these are things that are allowed under state law now. They are seen as a way to provide more affordable housing for people in the community. And so it is something that we'll be addressing in the housing element as far as how these fit into the community and how best to address this. So single family homes, townhomes, senior housing were all the top winners as far as this. The housing element is a unique element within the general plan because the state pays a lot more attention to this. It goes through a completely separate review process, and there's a whole bunch of laws about how you have to meet certain numbers out there. We should almost be to our end. The most important transportation issue to me is %, the congestion on State Highway 29, and the bicycle facilities come in next with about 17%. How would you rate jobs and economic opportunities in American Canyon? Again, 1 is poor, 9 is great. few more responses coming in. So right now we're looking at the fact that economic development is something we should pay attention to in the future of the community, about how we might enhance that for both the production of jobs as well as other opportunities within the community. 34% gave it a 3 as far as a number. Okay, so I promised 14 questions. And we've got this beautiful report also here. We'll eventually put this out on the website so you can all see it. Now, for the rest of the evening, as I said, there's a bunch of wonderful community organizations out here that would love to tell you what they do for the community. And so we'd encourage you in the next hour to wander around through those booths. Anywhere you see a poster that looks like this, with the blue on the bottom, is something concerning the general plan. The one right here in the corner, we have another little survey. And this one allows you to write some words in. So if you want to tell us what are the 3 key things that should be fixed in the community, or 3 biggest needs in the community, we'd love you to fill that out and drop it off in the box at that table. And if you'd just like to tell us something that's on your mind that relates to the general plan, there's comment cards over there too. So that table, I'll be over that way in a little bit, and I can help you. Please fill these out. And at this point, I don't know if I will let you go. So please, thank you for coming. Please spend some time. If anybody had a blue form, bring that up my way too. Blue forms up this way.